Long before smartphones, computers, or even televisions reached the quiet farming villages of India, we had the picture men, or the bioscope men. They were traveling entertainers who walked from town to town, carrying a heavy wooden machine on their backs. This machine was a large box mounted on a folded wooden stand. It was usually painted bright red and featured four round glass windows on the front. A child would pay a small coin, press their eyes to the glass, and the operator would turn a metal handle on the side. Inside the box, a roll of pictures would spin. You could see moving images of distant cities, famous monuments like the Taj Mahal, and movie stars. The operator would usually sing a catchy song to match the changing pictures. To a village child who had never seen the world past the nearby river, the picture box was pure magic. But the man who came to our village of Shantipur in the summer of 1998 did not bring magic. He brought a nightmare. We just called him the picture man. He arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, walking down the dusty dirt road that led into our village. He was incredibly tall and thin, wearing loose, faded grey clothes that looked like they had never been washed. A dark scarf was wrapped tightly around his head and neck, hiding most of his face. Instead of the cheerful bell most entertainers rang to gather a crowd, he played a wooden flute. The tune was slow and made my skin crawl. Still, the children ran to him. My younger brother, Rohan, dragged me by the hand to the village square. By the time we got there, the picture man had already set up his wooden stand. The red paint on his box was peeling, and the glass windows looked dirty, almost like clouded eyes. "I want to see," Rohan begged, holding up a 1 rupee coin. The picture man took the coin with long, bony fingers. He didn't speak. He just pointed to one of the glass windows. Rohan pressed his face against it, and the man threw a thick black cloth over my brother's head to block out the sunlight. Then he began to slowly turn the metal handle. Grind, click, grind, click. The machine sounded broken. It sounded like bones scraping against rocks. I watched the picture man. His eyes, barely visible under his dark scarf, were completely black. Not just dark brown, but entirely black, with no white at all. He stared straight ahead, not looking at Rohan, just mindlessly turning the handle. After a minute, the man pulled the black cloth away. Rohan stepped back. He didn't smile. He didn't talk about the series or the movie stars. He just stared at the ground, his face pale, and walked straight back to our house without saying a word. That night, the summer air was hot and completely still. I couldn't sleep. My bed was near the window of a small brick house, which looked out over the dirt road leading toward the forest edge. Around 2 in the morning, a sound woke me from a light sleep. Grind, click, grind, click. It was quiet, but clear in the dead of night. I sat up and looked out the open window. The moon was bright, casting long, silver shadows across the ground. There, standing in the middle of the empty road, was the picture man. His red box was set up on his wooden legs. He was turning the handle, looking up at the second-story window of our neighbor's house. I watched in silent horror as the front door of my neighbor's house slowly opened. A teenage boy named Samir walked out. Samir was fast asleep. His eyes were wide open, but they were blank and empty. His arms hung loosely by his sides. He walked stiffly, moving one barefoot step at a time toward the picture man. I wanted to scream, to wake my parents, but the voice was trapped in my throat. I was frozen, watching a real monster at work. Samir walked right up to the picture box. The tall, thin man did not cover Samir's head with a cloth this time. Instead, the man reached forward and opened the front panel of the wooden box. There were no pictures inside. There were no lights or gears. Inside the box was just a swirling, endless black hole. It looked like a tunnel made of thick, moving shadows. The picture man placed a bony hand on Samir's shoulder and gently pushed him forward. Samir didn't fight. He didn't wake up. He just stepped forward, right into the open wooden box. As soon as Samir's foot crossed the edge, his body seemed to stretch and fold like a soft clay. He was pulled into the dark hole without making a single sound. In the blink of an eye, the teenage boy was entirely gone, swallowed by the wooden box. The picture man slammed the front panel shut. He quickly folded the wooden legs, lifted the heavy box onto his back with unnatural strength, and walked away into the dark forest, leaving no footprints behind. The next morning, the village was in panic. Samir was missing, and the only thing left outside his house was a single rusted coin resting in the dirt. The morning after Samir disappeared, the local police arrived in their jeeps, kicking up dust and asking endless questions. They searched the forest, the riverbanks, and the empty fields. They found absolutely nothing. My parents were terrified. They locked our doors and boarded up the windows on the ground floor. But what scared them most was my younger brother, Rohan. Ever since he looked into that red wooden box, he had changed. He stopped eating. He stopped talking. He just sat in the corner of the room, staring blankly at the wall, quietly humming a low, tuneless song. "They cannot stay here," my mother whispered to my father one night. "It is not safe. We will send them to my sister's house until they find out what happened to Samir." My aunt lived in a much larger town across the river called Bilaspur, about 30 miles away. It was a busy place with a train station, large market, and electric street lights that stayed on all night. It felt modern and bright. To my parents, it meant safety. Monsters do not hunt where there are crowds and lights. The very next day, my father packed our bags, put us on a crowded bus, and sent us to my aunt's house. For the first 4 days, Bilaspur felt like a safe wall between us and the nightmare. I finally started to sleep again. Even Rohan seemed to blink a little more often, distracted by the noise of the street vendors and the passing trains. But on the 5th afternoon, the heavy, hot air rolled in between. The wind stopped blowing. The stray dogs on the street stopped barking and hid under the food carts. And then I heard it. A low, slow note from the wooden flute. It was the exact same heavy, skin-crawling tune. I was standing on my aunt's second-floor balcony. I froze when I looked down at the busy street market. The crowd was parting like water to make way for him. It was the picture man. He looked exactly the same. The faded grey clothes, the dark scarf covering his face, and the huge, peeling red box strapped to his thin back. He walked to the center of the market square and unfolded the wooden legs of his machine. My heart hammered against my ribs. He had followed us. "Look at the magic," the picture man called out. His voice was like dry paper tearing. "See the stars, see the laughing faces." The children of this new town did exactly what we had done. They dropped their toys and ran toward him. I wanted to scream from the balcony, to tell them to run away, but I knew that the adults would just think that I was crazy. A man showing pictures was normal. I was the only one who knew what was inside the box. I ran downstairs, pushing past my aunt in the kitchen, and sprinted out into the hot street. I had to stop them. By the time I pushed through the crowd, a little girl in a yellow dress was already stepping up to the machine. She held out her coin. The picture man took it, his pitch black eyes fixed on the little girl. He pointed a long, bony finger at the glass window and threw the heavy black cloth over her head. Grind, click, grind, click. "Stop!" I yelled, diving forward. I grabbed the black cloth and ripped it off the girl's head. The sudden, bright sunlight made her blink, but she did not look away from the glass window. I grabbed her shoulders and pulled her back hard. She fell into the dirt, crying out in surprise. The turning handle stopped. The entire crowd went silent. Angry adults glared at me. The little girl's mother ran forward, shouting at me for pushing her child. But I didn't care. I was staring at the red wooden box. Because I had pulled the girl away so fast, my own face was now just inches from the glass window. For one terrible second, I looked inside. There were no moving pictures of cities or actors. Inside the box, floating in a dark, empty space, were the faces of children. Dozens, hundreds of them. Their faces were pale and stretched, frozen in silent screams. And right in the center, spinning slowly in the darkness, was the face of my neighbor, Samir. His mouth was open, and a silent, begging cry was trapped behind the thick glass. Suddenly, a cold, heavy hand clamped onto the back of my neck. I gasped. The grip was like ice, burning my skin through my shirt. The picture man leaned down, his face entirely covered by the dark scarf, except for those endless black eyes. "You see too much, little boy," he whispered directly into my ear. His breath smelled like old dust. "Your eyes are open. Tonight I will close them." "Hey, let go of him," a man in the crowd shouted. The town adults were stepping closer, angry at the sudden trouble in their market. The picture man let go of my neck instantly. He stood straight up, his strange eyes scanning the angry crowd. Without another word, he quickly folded his machine, lifted it onto his back, and walked away. He seemed to slide through the crowd, vanishing down a narrow side alley before anyone could stop him. I stood in the dirt road, shivering despite the summer heat. I touched the back of my neck. It was freezing cold, and I knew there would be dark bruises in the shape of his long fingers. He had marked me. I didn't tell my aunt. I didn't tell anyone. Adults only believe in things they can explain, and no one would believe that a man with a picture box was a monster who ate people through a wooden door. I had to save myself. I knew his trick. It was the sound. The low flute and the grinding of the machine put people into a deep sleep while they walked. If I couldn't hear him, maybe he couldn't control me. Before dinner, I sneaked into the kitchen and stole 2 thick wax candles. When night fell and my aunt sent me and Rohan to bed, I sat up in the dark. I broke the candles apart and kneaded the wax in my hands until it was soft. Then I pressed the thick wax deeply into my ears. It worked. The sounds of the street outside went completely silent. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. I reached under my bed and pulled out the heavy metal hammer I had taken from my uncle's toolbox. I gripped the wooden handle with both hands and waited on the edge of the bed. The hours dragged on. The moon rose high, shining a pale square of light onto the bedroom floor. Suddenly, a strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't a sound, but a vibration. The wax blocked my ears, but I could feel a low buzzing in my teeth and my bones. My eyes grew incredibly heavy. A warm, fuzzy feeling spread through my brain. The urge to stand up, to walk out the front door, to see the beautiful pictures, hit me like a wave. Walk. A voice seemed to whisper inside my own mind. Come and see. My legs moved on their own. I stood up from the bed. My arms hung loose by my sides. The heavy metal hammer dragging against the floor. I walked out of the bedroom, down the stairs, and toward the front door of my aunt's house. I was fighting it with everything that I had, biting my own tongue to keep from falling completely asleep. But my body kept moving. I unlocked the front door and stepped out into the cold night air. He was waiting in the narrow street. The picture man stood in the moonlight. The red box was open. The swirling, dark tunnel inside shifted and moved, calling out to me. He reached out his long, bony hand, waiting for me to step inside. Every step felt like walking through deep mud. I was only 3 feet away from the open box. 2 feet. The shadows inside the box seemed to reach out, touching my face. Sleep, the dark shape whispered. No, I told myself. With one final burst of anger and fear, I bit down on my tongue as hard as I could. The sharp pain ripped through the fog in my brain. The warm, fuzzy feeling shattered. I snapped my eyes wide open, lifted my arms, and swung the heavy metal hammer with all my strength. I didn't aim for the tall, thin man. I knew I couldn't hurt him. I rather aimed for the machine. The hammer smashed directly into the top right glass window of the red box. The thick glass exploded into 1,000 sharp pieces. The sound was deafening. But it wasn't just the sound of breaking glass. A terrible, ear-piercing scream blasted out from the hole in the box. It sounded like 100 voices crying out in pain all at once. A blast of freezing air shot out of the broken window, throwing me backward. I hit the dirt hard, dropping the hammer. The picture man stumbled back, a horrible hissing noise coming from his hidden mouth. He grabbed the red box, wrapping his long arms around, as if protecting a wounded animal. The dark, swirling tunnel inside the box suddenly collapsed, snapping shut like a mouth. Lights began to flicker on in the houses around the street. Dogs started barking frantically. People had started waking up. The demon glared down at me. His pitch black eyes were wide with pure rage. For a second, he took a step toward me, his long, jagged teeth showing under his scarf. But the sound of doors opening and people yelling grew louder. He knew he was out of time. He slammed the front panel of the box shut, threw the broken machine onto his back, and turned away. He didn't walk. He moved like a shadow stretching across the ground, disappearing into dark fields behind the houses before anyone else stepped outside. My aunt found me sitting in the dirt, bleeding from a small cut on my cheek, staring into the dark. We left Bilaspur the next morning. When we got back home to Shantipur, something amazing happened. As soon as we walked through the door, my brother Rohan looked at me and asked for a glass of water. He was talking again. The blank stare was gone from his eyes. When I broke the glass window in the machine, I must have broken the spell keeping him trapped in his own mind. But Sameer never came back. Years have passed since that summer. I grew up, moved to the city, and the dirt roads of the villages have slowly been covered with black tar. People look at screens in their hands now, not glass windows in wooden boxes. But I know the truth. You cannot kill a monster like that. You can only survive him. Sometimes, when I travel through the old rural towns late at night, when the air gets still and heavy, I hear a slow, low tune from a wooden flute. And if you listen closely, underneath the music, you can hear the sound of a machine turning. Grind, click, grind, click. He is still out there, moving from place to place in the dark. But now, if you ever see a tall, thin man carrying a red picture box, look closely at the front. One of the brass rings will be empty, its glass eye shattered and broken. If you see it, do not look inside.